What's good, YouTube? Warstorm here, coming at you guys in a video. Today I'll be showing you guys a deck I haven't featured in the channel in a long time, if ever, which is Nekroz. Nekroz recently received some support off the ban list in the form of 3 copies of Brianek back from 1, as well as Shruit coming back to the limited status, and I feel like it was a good time to show you guys what Nekroz looks like in 2019. Now granted, a lot has changed in the time that Nekroz has been placed on the ban list, and of course, Yugioh is still limited here in the TCG, so it's definitely a factor in terms of the deck's viability, but it's nice to see the cards off the list, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the meta matchups that Nekroz has, maybe its viability, and then showing you guys the deck profile. So of course, it wouldn't be a stretch to say at all that Thunder Dragons is by far Nekroz's worst matchup. If you guys remember back in 2015 when the deck was good, Mistake was a very popular card to main deck because it hit Nekroz so hard. And Colossus is a very difficult card for Nekroz to deal with. Because it forces you to have the materials ritual summon in your hand, and even if you have what you need to ritual summon, barring summoning Yugioh, which is at 1 still, which you're not going to see it every game, you're not going to have the resources to be able to ritual summon to get the Colossus off the board. And if you're not summoning Yugioh, well, Titan can pop your monsters. So it's a very difficult matchup for the deck. But Thunder Dragons did lose a little bit of consistency on the last ban list, so it does remain to be seen whether it's going to be something you're going to worry about, because I feel like the format is not going to be as Thunder Dragon heavy as it was, but it's up to you. But it's definitely Nekroz's worst matchup. Sky Striker, on the other hand, Nekroz can definitely grind with the deck, I think. With Trishula's hand effect, I think it's pretty easy for the deck to deal with Widow Anchor. Trishula also really deals well with Ray's Grave effect, and it's always going to be live against the deck unless they completely empty their hand, which the deck really rarely does. It typically always has cards in hand, so it's definitely an easier matchup than Thunder Dragons. But again, the deck can resource out so many things, and Yugioh, while it does cripple the deck's ability to recycle things with Kagari or go for your life points with Hayate, they can also pretty easily clear it just simply by dropping an Afterburners or a Widow Anchor on it and making their plays. There's also Infinite Impermanence, so it's safe to say Sky Striker will typically have the out for your Yugioh more than you're able to summon it turn 1. But that being said, playing into their boards isn't super difficult with things like Nekroz or Trishula, so it's definitely not a super favorable matchup, but more of a push. As far as Altergeists aren't really running the amount of floodgates they were running. So outside of Imperial Order, which obviously is going to pretty much completely cripple your deck, Altergeists aren't really playing floodgates in their current state. Now obviously that is subject to change with the format being early on, but I do think that Altergeist is definitely not an unfavorable matchup for Nekroz too much, considering they're not running a lot of those floodgates. Multi-Faker into Silky just doesn't really hurt the deck all that much. However, of course, once Altergeist set up all their traps, it is very difficult to play in their board. Yugioh also has very little impact, if at all, on the deck. That's definitely a factor as well. But I would say, because Nekroz can have the resources to be able to ritual summon again after baiting a Silkidus, and Trishula is still a nutty card, that I do think that it's definitely a winnable matchup for Nekroz. But the real question is, do I think Nekroz is going to be able to compete with the meta decks in 2019? It's debatable at this point. I do think, and considering the deck's current price tag with because it's not going to be reprinted until April, I don't know if it justifies paying them that amount of money just for a rogue deck at best at its current stage, but I could be completely wrong. That being said, we'll go ahead and move straight into the deck profile. So I'm not going to go over too many of the things you guys probably already know, but some of the new things like the Impcantations, I think this is a pretty standard ratio for Impcantations. You don't want to have too many in your hand, if that makes sense, because they can be a little bricky in multiples if you have too many of them. So I do think that, and they all really have toolboxy things to help the deck. whether it's searching ritual spells or monsters or recycling your ritual monsters and spells. So that's pretty dang nice. They have a ton of consistency to the deck. The new ritual monster, Chalice Slime, can discard cards from your hand, which isn't really a bad thing in Nekroz because you have things like Cycle to bring things back from the grave, to be able to grab any of these incantations straight from your deck. Just a really nice little toolbox along with the new ritual spell. This ritual spell adds some kind of toolboxy things to the deck as well. So I really do like some of the things it does add. Being able to send an incantation to recycle, to special summon any incantation from your deck and then add it right back is really good. And it's worse as a generic ritual spell if you do need it. So I do think these two cards add a ton of consistency to this engine, but I still don't think you want to run too many of them. But if you want to run more, you're going to have to bump the card come up. A card you might not see here, however, is Mega Zaborg. I'm not a huge fan of Mega Zaborg because it's good if it happens, but there's so many things that can interrupt it resolving. And don't get me wrong, it's a complete blowout if it resolves, but I prefer to have my normal summon set for other things. Like, for example, Manju. Manju is still a pretty good staple in Nekroz because you can resource out your entire deck with it, so there's not too much to say. But that being said, we are heading into a format that's going to have more back row reactive cards. So Denko Sekka is definitely a card if you want to replace Manju with it, you feel free, but Denko should definitely be in your side no matter what. As far as the Nekroz ritual lineup, I think everything is relatively standard. Shruit makes things like Decisive Armor viable again. Gungnir is great protection for the deck. Trishula, I've always liked it a little bit too because the targeting effect in hand does come up, especially in a format with things like Silkidus and Widow Anchor that target. Trishula's hand effect can be pretty clutch. I've always liked 3 Valk. The draw power it adds as well as the protection for your monsters is great. Brianak, not too much to say. Unicorn is limited, but it's still the best card in the archetype. And then, of course, Colossus searches your ritual spells. The ritual spell lineup is also pretty standard from the 2015 days. I haven't really seen a reason why to change it. Mirror can banish things from the grave as cost, which is great. Cycle can summon your monster from the grave, such as Unicorn, which is fantastic. And Kaleidoscope allows you to get those awkward levels out of your hand, which is great. Call by the Grave is a pretty good staple in Nekroz simply because his hand traps are around, and there's a lot of cards that stop you or plays, such as Ash Blossom, Ghost Spell, etc. Ghost Spell Cycle can be Ghost Spelled, for example. So I just like having Call by the Grave because there's so many things, hand traps running around, and there's so many and that you just having Call by the Grave is great. Then Preparation Rites and Rhoda are just search cards here for your consistency. Preparation Rites was limited at one point because of this deck, so why would you not max out on it? It's fantastic. Being able to cycle back your ritual spells and grab ritual monsters straight from your deck is great. Rhoda is great consistency to being able to search out your Shruit, and I don't really see, and it can also search your Colossus as well. As far as the extra deck, most of these synchros and the fusion here are just kind of here to be sent off of your Kaleidoscope. They have the only thing you really care about is the level of the monster you're sending. 10 works really well because you can summon, for example, Brianak and Unicorn in the same play, or maybe a Gungnir and a Colossus. 12 works well with Trishula if you have Trishula and Colossus in hand. 11 is for maybe Valk and Colossus. Trishula is here for maybe a 9 like a Brianak and Colossus. But Herald is one of the most important cards in the extra deck for obvious reasons. You can dump it with your Kaleidoscope and then get a free search to kind of further your plays. One of my favorite combos to do going first, for example, is to go into Unicorn and then search out a Gungnir to protect it, which is really nice. Then for the rest of the extra deck, it's just mostly staples. Tornado Dragon, Castell to clear problem threats. Exciton to blow out our opponent if they aren't prepared for it. Dweller can be pretty nice against deck like Prank Kids and other graveyard-dependent decks, and being able to pump up your monsters sometimes comes up. Cowboy can help you in time in certain situations, and then some just generic removal in the form of Nightmare, Phoenix, Nightmare Cerberus, Nightmare Unicorn, and then just Miss Starboy to round out the extra deck. So all that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this Nekroz deck profile and some of what do you guys think of Nekroz? Do you think it has some decent matchups against the meta? Is it going to have a hard time? Let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, I thank you guys for watching. Warstorm signing out.